We are News New Mexico. It's Tuesday, October 4th, 2011. Jim Spence is here. I'm Michael Swickard.
So why are we rushing headlong over a cliff?
Well, we're heading headlong over a cliff to economic demise in the way that we're handling these subsidies. And really what the column that you're referencing shows is the foolish lengths that government will go to see their dream of green energy become a reality. And that's what I've in the article I've highlighted what I find almost humorous, if it wasn't our money, cases in two small states that both have very high electricity rates already, and these two small states, Rhode Island and Delaware, are rushing headlong over a cliff to make this green energy dream possible.
Why do you think that that there's such an obsession with trying to eliminate fossil fuels?
Well, since you put it that way, to give you a really direct answer, is I really believe after studying this as I have now for 5 years, studying these issues, that there are people out there who really want to destroy America. And because they're really not only against fossil fuels, a lot of the professional environmentalists, because they don't really like wind and solar now that it's becoming a reality, though fossil fuel has been the key battlefront, is that they're really trying to kill what is abundant, available, and affordable energy. So that cost-effective energy that comes from primarily coal or natural gas in the form of electricity or gasoline in the form of transportation fuels, they want to kill those and substitute for those more expensive energy.
We are coming up on 11 minutes past the hour. We're talking with Marita Noon, Executive Director of Energy Makes America Great. It deals with energy issues. And Marita, I don't know. Sometimes I think these people, a lot of them, they have a new religion. And this energy that the idea of wind and solar is more like a religion to them, because there is no data to really show that what they're talking about really does work, and yet their main thing is that they believe it.
Yes, and it has become like a religion, and that's kind of what I was referring to as the green dream or the green scheme. They've got this idea that they're going to have this, what I like to call, an environmental utopia. In fact, you've led me into perfectly there my new book, which should be out in a week or two. I'm turning in the final edits on it this morning, and it should be in my hands in a week or two. I'm hoping to have it when I speak in Midland on October 11th, but I am for sure going to have it when I speak in Las Vegas on October 19th. So it'll be out in a week or two. But in this book, what started this, and this is really what started my personal passion for the topic of energy, and that is I looked at 25 different environmental groups' websites. And some of them were big ones like the Sierra Club, and some were regional only, and some were kind of specific interests like We Hate Nuclear. Not that that's the name of a group, but, but that's what I mean by specific interest. And I looked at what are their goals as they relate to energy, and then put them on kind of a spreadsheet, and then I wrote kind of a tongue-in-cheek narrative of what would the world be like if we could give the environmentalists all these things, if we could just wave a magic wand and give them what they want. When you take all these different goals and you put them together into one kind of, I made it I pretended like it's a community, a housing tract, a housing development, a new planned community, called it environmental utopia. And what would the world be like? And the short version is that we would end up living in caves. And it destroys everything.
Why in a cave? Why in a cave?
What we know today.
Because I understand why you'd live in a cave, but do people understand why we would live in a cave?
Well, in the narrative that I present. You take away transportation, you're down to horses.
Yes.
You know, and you take away electricity, and you take away, and then you don't have a microwave, and you don't have an air conditioner, and then you take away fossil fuels. You then no longer have concrete, because concrete is is very energy intensive, and you don't have electric saws to cut the trees down. You know, all those things. So you little by little you take away everything, including a lot of healthcare stuff.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that's interesting, if you looked at the some of the news flow lately on the government's involvement in energy, one, it's just been reported in the last couple of days that President Obama was warned by his staffers and even from his campaign contributors that Solyndra was probably going bankrupt. Can you make heads or tails on why there was just this obsession to guarantee a loan for a company that was on the verge of bankruptcy? And what also do you make of this latest solar loan going to a company where the number 2 investor is one Ronald Pelosi?
Well, I mean, you know, do you need me to comment on that?
Yeah, we need to. I just can't quite figure this out, and I need you to clarify for me.
Well, you know, I mean, they were showing on television this morning President Obama talking about Solyndra and saying that, well, you know, it was just a bad bet. But what the Solyndra example is, and the examples that I have in the article show how foolish it is. The governor of Delaware had to get to his, what in Delaware, the situation, what they're trying to put in is a fuel cell plant. They're both going to do manufacturing of the fuel cells, and they're going to have the fuel cells generating electricity, which is their plan. And the plan, financially, it doesn't work. Now, fuel cell technology, there is no question, fuel cell technology can generate electricity. The problem is it cannot generate electricity profitably. And so they have to have this concept participate in the credits that you can get for renewable energy and so forth. However, fuel cells require natural gas. Natural gas is a fossil fuel. And so what the governor in Delaware had to do is get the legislature to change what they call their renewable portfolio standard. And we in New Mexico have a renewable portfolio standard. And I was just talking with Commissioner Pat Lyons yesterday, who used to be our land commissioner, but now is on the Public Regulatory Commission here in New Mexico. And I talked to him about repealing the renewable portfolio standard that we have in New Mexico because it just plain mandates more expensive electricity. Well, Delaware has that and Rhode Island has that as well. And in Delaware, the governor had to get the legislature to change the definition of renewable energy so that fuel cells can be incorporated in it. And this is just plain craziness, and it goes back to what you're saying about, you know, the religion, or they're just hell-bent on making sure that this green energy gets in there, becomes a reality. So they changed, in Delaware, they changed the regulation of what is renewable energy to include electricity generated from fuel cells, which is just plain not renewable energy because it comes from fossil fuels. And they've had similar shenanigans in Rhode Island they've changed regulations to get what they want.
Yeah, Marita Noon. Now, when we come back, coal is now being smacked around as being very dangerous to the health of people. We get about half our electricity from coal and a lot of other things. When we come back, we'll talk with Marita Noon about that. She is the executive director of Energy Makes America Great. More on News New Mexico.
You know,
speaking of a pinhead, before we get to Marita Noon.
You know, I'm looking at the TV monitors here in the News New Mexico studio.
Don't do it.
I'm looking at ABC News. They're talking to the president, and he says he has no regrets on the Solyndra investment. Now, we've heard so many of several states of the unions now where it's we have to invest. America has to invest. Now, I that's my profession. I'm an investor. I can tell you, Marita, that when I make a bad boo-boo. I regret it.
You regret it. It is 24 minutes past the hour. We're talking with Marita Noon, Executive Director of Energy Makes America Great. Marita, why aren't people regretting spending $500 million and losing it?
Well, I think we, the American consumer, who have in essence allowed Obama to be our investment counselor, I think we are regretting it. The public has definitely regretted it, but President Obama has to put a happy face on it for him, especially since he has just sent out the door on September 30th $4.7 billion.
Billion.
Yes, billion. Sorry, with a B. You know, the numbers are so out of my range of comprehension. I do words, I don't do numbers. I can't even comprehend that kind of money. But he has just sent out the door on September 30th because there was a deadline and they had to rush. And I think anyone who was a betting person would be willing to gamble on that at least two of these projects, and I'm not saying any specific two. I'm just like picking a number. I'm not saying that I have any insight that two are good and two are bad. But you know, at least half of them are probably not going to be a good investment because the reality is these projects are just not showing themselves to be financially feasible. And as I stated in the article, the whole rush to these renewable energies is based on two lies, two fallacies. And the first one is that climate change is a man-made crisis and that even if only we in the United States do something about it, it is worth ruining the economy for, because after all, we're saving the planet. And secondly, that we have an energy shortage. And that's why we look to renewables. They only make sense if those two things are true. But neither one of them is true. And the fact of the matter is, as I mentioned before the break, fuel cell technology, like what they're talking about with Bloom Energy in Delaware, it does generate electricity. Wind power, it does generate electricity. Solar power, it does generate electricity. The technology is there. So you know what? We now have the technology. I think we should continue to let the research and development percolate. Let these technologies go into place in places where they're logical, and there are some places where it is logical and where it does work. But then when the economy comes back and things are good and going well, then maybe we can look at putting in some of this more expensive energy. But right now, when a tiny bit, and this is one of the pieces that's in the article, the column that we're talking about, is there's a plastic company in Rhode Island, and the cost of energy in Rhode Island is high already. This company is ready to expand, and don't we want that in this economy? This company is ready to expand, but they're looking at expanding their Virginia plant rather than their Rhode Island plant because plastics is an energy-intensive industry, and energy is half the price in Virginia than it is in Rhode Island.
Yeah. We are talking with the Marita Noon. Energy Makes America Great.